Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are attending the July 2013 PracticeMaster Virtual User Group meeting. The very third, it's not the very first, it's not the very second, it's the very third PracticeMaster only virtual user group meeting. And I'm feeling very young today. Those of you who may have attended our TABS virtual user group meeting may be laughing because I was feeling old then, but I'm feeling young now because I've just been scolded by Leanne. I am not allowed to tell the same joke, so I feel like a little kid because I am in trouble. Today we are going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? Mary Jo's going to talk about her favorite topic. It may not be yours because it's how we bill you for her. She's going to talk about the timer. She uses the timer religiously to keep track of her time. And she also then turns that time that she's recorded into actual fee entries in the billing system, kind of as part of one process. She's going to show you how she does that, how she switches between jobs, all the great things about the timer. And then I'm going to show you how to take all your timer records plus other records that are created, journal records, emails, notes, calendar records, tasks that have been checked off, all sorts of other things that you can convert en masse into fee entries in the billing system. So today is all about billing, but it's the PracticeMaster Virtual User Group, and so we're talking about billing through PracticeMaster. Now, before we do that, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. And I'm going to show you this, which is your GoToWebinar control panel. You probably saw something like this when you first signed on to this meeting. If you're still looking at it, you can press this little button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, and it will push this out of the way to the right. Once you've done that, this button will turn into an arrow that points to the left. Clicking that button again will cause this to slide back into focus. Why do you want to get it out of the way? You do if it's covering up my screen because you want to see what's going on. Why do you want to get it back into focus? Because you're shy and you want to type a question, but you don't want to actually talk to us. So if you bring this back into focus and type a question here and click on send, Leanne, our humble moderator, will notice that. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the appropriate time. She will ask your question on your behalf. While your question is being answered, please feel free to type all of your follow-up questions one after another. Be sure to hit send after each one, and Leanne will be sure to get all of your question answered. And then when you're done, you can slide this back out of the way and keep watching. Now, if you're not feeling shy and you want to ask a question, you can instead press this button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. That means raise your hand. Leanne will once again notice that you have raised your hand, but this time, when she interrupts us at the appropriate time, she will not be doing so to ask the question on your behalf, but instead will unmute you, and you will get to talk to us directly. The thrill of a lifetime, I know. Again, keep asking your questions. Make sure that you keep asking until you've got everything answered, and then when you're done, Leanne will mute you back up so that if you happen to be eating a late lunch that consists of Doritos, you will be able to do so without interrupting us. And now, without further ado, I am going to turn things over to Mary Jo, who's going to tell us everything we ever wanted to know about the timer in PracticeMaster.
Okay. I know a lot of times before I started using the timer, I had little notes that I would jot down when I started talking to a client, when I ended, and those notes would either get shuffled into my desk pile of stuff to do, or I would forget to write down what time I started or what time I stopped, or I would have several of these little notes stuck all over the place. And it really got to be a pain, and I know I was losing time because I wasn't billing exactly, or I would try to remember and put my time in. Oh, I thought I worked about 15 minutes on this, when in reality it might have been 20 or 30 minutes, and that time just kind of starts getting away from you. So this timer feature that PracticeMaster has is really great at keeping track of any time that you're doing, whether it's billable, non-billable, for the firm, not for the firm. You can keep track of your whole day through this timer. And I use it every day, all the time. I think I would be pretty lost without it. In fact, if I am somewhere else and I can't use it, it does really affect how I take my time again. So once you start using it and get used to it, I really think you'll like it. It's very easy to capture and then quickly convert it into a fee entry. So the timer is here on your main screen. It's also up here in your toolbar. If you want to start timers, you can open this up. I like to start a few before, at the beginning of my day. I know maybe I'm going to speak with 3 different clients. I'll have those ready to go. Created. I won't start them yet, but I'll have them, I guess, opened, as you can say, and then put the client's name and everything there ready to go so I can just click on it. And then I also will have a miscellaneous one open that's just not even assigned to anybody, because I might get that call that I wasn't expecting, and I want to be able to start that timer right away. Now, you can start them right on the fly. You don't have to do it ahead of time, but I like to kind of have it there, because as your day gets busy, you don't always have that, that time to do it. So if you have some of them already started, it just saves a little bit of time in the morning. There are a couple different types of timers here. Just to start a new time task is this first one. You'll see the little piece of paper like our little new button in all of our programs. There is a new phone task if you want this to actually be coded as a phone task, just like when you're starting a journal note or something and it has a timer task or a phone task or a research task. Those are the different types that you can start. You can actually have them coded that. So if you want it to say phone in front of it instead of timer, just click on the little time task here if it has the phone. You can click on the time task here for the research if you want to start a research timer and have it be coded with research in front of it. So these are just a couple of different things here that you can do. I usually just use my straight time task. I don't get fancy with it. I just want to record the time and be able to convert it to a fee. So to start a new one, you can just click on that button, and here I've got just a blank. It's zeros all the way across the board. I have no client name, work description, or anything in here right now. So let's say I wanted to start 3. I know I'm going to talk to 3 different clients, and I'm going to add a 4th one in for a miscellaneous. If I double-click on the timer, it opens up a journal note, and I'm going to reduce this down. And this should look familiar. If you use journal notes, this is just the journal window, but I can assign the client I want to talk to or I am going to be working with right at the beginning. So if I'm going to be working with Michael Larson today, I can go ahead and put that in, have it ready to go, and save it. And now if I look at my timer, and I should point out it opens in a separate window. Here's my regular PracticeMaster, but I also have my timer. It's a separate window that can be pinned down, either drug to the side. I can shrink it. I can reduce it to the screen, but that timer runs in a separate window so that that can be going while I'm still working in PracticeMaster. But now my first timer has Michael Larson all ready to go, but it's still zeros. There's no date there. There's no time because I haven't started it. I'll get another one ready here, and I'll get back onto my PracticeMaster window here. And here we'll do this one to Peterson Insurance. And so that one's ready to go. And I could do that for as many different clients as I know that I'm supposed to be working on that day. And I'll do one down here for a miscellaneous. I won't even put anything in here for the client, but I'm just going to type in my description field that it's a miscellaneous one, and later I can come and assign a client ID to it if I want to. Now, I do have some firms that they ask their employees to keep track of all their non-billable time as well. They want to have their whole day mapped out in the timer. Either you're working on a client or a billable time or you're not. And so this other timer could have been one for non-billable, and when I go to lunch, I could have that be running. Or I could, if I'm working on something that's for the firm or administrative, I could have that running. All those different options here for your timer. So let's say that it's time. I'm going to call Michael Larson's office, and I want to start this timer. You can either use the little play button up here at the top, or I can use the little square right next to it. Either one, by clicking on it, will start the timer. And so now it's playing, and I'm doing whatever I had to do for Michael Larson. And as I'm going through, I all of a sudden get a phone call. I have to set this down and pick up this call that I wasn't expecting. So I can stop this timer and immediately start my miscellaneous, I clicked on the one above, but whatever, your miscellaneous timer, and now I could be working on that. And I get done with that phone call. I can then double-click and assign it to a client, put in my notes of what I did, and then I can convert it to a fee. So you can flip back and forth. You can only have one going at a time, but you can flip back and forth between them very easily as you go throughout your day. So let's say that I'm done with Michael Larson and I'm ready to bill this time for him. I can open it up by just double-clicking on the entry. I'm going to get back into the time task, and I'm going to just type what I did. Maybe I had a conference with Michael, and we discussed whatever. This can be the long note. It's whatever I did. It could be paragraphs long. It doesn't matter because I want to keep track of everything I just did for Michael Larson. And once I've done that, I can save it, or I skip. As the least amount of steps that I need to do, I do. So I know I'm going to bill this. I've put in everything I've done for him. Like I said, it could be several paragraphs long. And I don't even save first. I just hit convert to fee, because as soon as I hit convert to fee, it's going to ask me to save this journal note. So I just say yes. And then now it takes me into my fee window. And it's kept track of how much time. There are convert to fee settings, and we have talked about how to set some of those up. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with that for this session, but you can have these parameters set up ahead of time so it automatically knows that you are the attorney and that you're going to round to the nearest tenth. You're going to bill a minimum of a tenth, all of those things, so that those settings are already there. So it will capture whatever that time was. I think I only had 9 seconds, but you can see that it's rounding to the nearest tenth. And then I can edit this. I can have my settings default to have this be blank. I can have this default to being anything I typed in here, or a specific transaction code to start my fee entry. So I usually just leave it to whatever I've typed over here, because I usually don't keep track of paragraphs worth of information. But if I were, I would just delete what I don't want here, and I would just put in here conference with client, or whatever that would be for what I want the bill to say. So I'm saving 2 separate records. So if I save this, now I have got my fee entry. It's saved over and ready to be billed. I still have my journal note intact, and that's going to be stored under the journal file. And now I'm done with this particular entry. So if I close this and I come back to my timer window, that entry has fallen off my list because I've already processed it, it's already been billed, and I'm done. Now sometimes I'll leave these open, because what if I worked on Peterson Insurance in the morning and I thought, well, maybe they might call me back in the afternoon and have a couple follow-up questions. I might leave this open and do this at the end of the day. Or I might just bill it, and then I might start a new timer if they call me back. It just depends on, if I think I'm done, I'll probably just go bill it and get it off my list. Now, Paul's going to talk to you about a little bit about how to do things at the end of the day in a different place where you can group things. But in my list, I like to try to keep this clean. I want it empty by the end of the day, and I want it fresh for the next time. So these entries are all here ready to go. If I don't need one at the end of the day, if I never use this miscellaneous one, I can come in and just delete it, and then that's going to fall off the list because I don't need it. So let me get that one off of there and delete that record. And then if I come in, go back to my timer records, that one's off my list. So either I'm going to bill it or I'm not. Occasionally, I might carry one over for the next day if I was in the middle of something, but very rarely. I like to keep my list, like I said, clean. I like to bill all that time right away and have it done. You can click on some different things here to edit. I double-click, but you can edit. You can edit the times. Let's say that you forget to start the timer. You come back and you forget to start it, or you forget to stop it. You hung up the phone, you got busy doing things, 10 minutes later you realized you forgot to stop your timer. And that happens all the time. So what you can do is get into the entry. I just double-click to open it, and there's a little Edit Times button down here. So you can click on the time, and you can actually, in this one, I don't think I had even started this one, but I could change the times on here. Maybe I actually started this at 2 o'clock, and I ended at 2:16, and I can say OK. Or maybe I came back in and I did a follow-up thing. I had to go make copies or do an email or whatever, and I have to add another 10 minutes. I can insert a row, and I can add 10 minutes to my timer so that I can get that in there. If you forget to stop it, you can come back here and you can back this up. Maybe it was supposed to stop at 2:10, and it will recalculate my time here, and it will round it back up to the nearest tenth. So you can adjust those amounts, and it happens to me, I'm sure it's a common thing that you forget. You get busy and on to the next thing, or you have multiple things going on at once, and you're starting and stopping, and you forget to get one started or stopped. And it's just very easily adjusted right here. And then the last thing that I will show you, once you get your list all done, you can go back in, and you can actually see a visual timer display of all of the things that you've done that day with your timer. So in this, we probably had some samples earlier, but this shows me my whole day and every time I started or stopped a timer. Now mine looks a lot different. This is sample data. There's not a lot of information in here. But on mine, I would have several different entries throughout my whole day, and I could see when I was busiest or when I wasn't, what hours of the day I seemed to work more or less, and I would be able to see that at a week at a time. If Paul wanted to, he could come in and see this report to see how active I was and what I was doing. So for administrators, this is a good report to monitor your staff and see how much they're using the timer and what they're doing. That doesn't mean they're not working if they don't have a timer going on, but I just, that's a mandatory thing that they should have a timer going. It's a way to monitor and track time and how they're using it. So, any questions?
I might add that it doesn't mean they are working if they do have a
That's true too. They could just start and stop and you don't know what they're doing, but it's another tool. So, questions? No questions. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about the same sort of thing, but from a different perspective. Mary Jo showed you how to add and edit and work with timer records to keep track of what you're doing and to actually physically time what's going on. But PracticeMaster knows a lot of different things that you're doing. It knows what events have passed. It knows what tasks have been checked off on your to-do list. It knows what notes you've entered. Of course, as you just saw, it knows what timer records you've created. It knows what emails you've journaled. These are all activities that PracticeMaster keeps track of, and they're great to keep track of from a practice management standpoint. You want to know what tasks need to be completed. You want to know which ones you have completed. You want to know what events you have coming up, when the pretrial is, the fact that you have a depot at 3 o'clock this afternoon. All those things are important to you from a practice management standpoint. You want emails to be in PracticeMaster attached to specific matters so that everybody can see the communication that's gone back and forth for that matter. You want to take notes. I talked to Mr. Smith today, and he said this was blue, when in fact I think last week he said it was green. Those are important things to know from a practice management standpoint. And another thing to understand is that if you pull up the client record and you go to a certain note, you can convert it to a fee, just like Mary Jo did when she converted. This one's already been converted. Just like Mary Jo converted that timer record to a fee, I can take this note and convert it to a fee. So right here, I talked to Bob and he said red, I want a bill for that. I convert to fee, bam, it's going to convert that to a fee, put in the description, and allow me to specify perhaps a different time, perhaps not. But for the most part, you're usually just taking these, maybe editing the description, saving it, and you've just built something. That's great. And I have many, many clients. We have many, many clients that do it that way. But another way to do it is to come into File, and under the File menu, there's a sub-menu option called Process Timer Records. And Process Timer Records takes you to a list. Now, my list is not too long. It's probably indicative of a day's worth of stuff. And as I scroll down, we can see what these different items are. And I can take each specific thing, note, email, timer record, task that was checked off, event that passed, and I can convert it to a fee through this list. Now, the reason it's significant that I can do this here is that I am looking at a list of everything that I've done in PracticeMaster since the last time I did this, absent anything that I converted to a fee on the fly, as Mary Jo just demonstrated. So I can come in and say that this note, I talked to Bob and he said red. I can convert it to a fee, just like I said I could. I can change it to conference with client. And I'll abbreviate because I can't talk and type at the same time. And now that's gone from my list. And so I might have another thing. Here's an email talking about a song, but it's an email nonetheless. Here's another email. Here's another email right here. All four of these emails, might all be about exactly the same thing. So we might combine them to a fee. And call it email correspondence with client. And I have taken these 4 emails that I checked off, converted them to one fee. I must not have my convert to fee settings set properly to combine, because you can also tell it how to combine and how to compute the time when you're combining emails and when you're combining phone calls. And I have just taken all 4 of those emails and converted them into one time entry. I can also take certain things, like these 4 things, and say, you know, all 4 of these represent things that I'm not going to bill for, so I can mark them as hidden. And you'll notice that as I get done with this, I'm going to take the other 3 emails and I'm going to combine them to a fee. And again, I'm going to put in point 3, and I'm going to say emails. And you'll notice that as this list gets shorter, I am able to close it all the way up to being empty, and I have taken everything I've done since the last time I did this and converted it to fees. So if you are using PracticeMaster to manage cases, you're taking notes, you're tagging emails to files, you're putting tasks in the system, you're putting events in the system, you're checking off your tasks when they're done, you are keeping timer records. Any of those things are going to show up here if they have not been converted to fees on the fly, as Mary Jo showed you and as I did with that one record. I can then pretty much work my day knowing that the things that I'm doing to memorialize those events, tagging those emails, taking those notes for a practice management viewpoint, from a practice management standpoint, will then allow me to see them on this list to convert them to fees at the end of the day. I come through here, I decide what I'm going to bill for, what I'm not going to bill for. I make individual fee entries for all the items that are going to be billed individually. I make combined fee entries for the 4 emails that I have back and forth regarding a certain matter in the same day, so that I'm not billing 4 times for email in the same day. I'm just billing one combined record. I take the things that I know that I'm not going to bill for, but that are still nice to see in here, and I mark them as hidden so I don't see them again. And when I'm done, this list is empty, and then tomorrow I come back in and I work my whole day, and at the end of that day, I do the same thing. We have a good handful of clients that follow this process religiously. Now, the thing about timekeeping, different things work for different people. Mary Jo, I actually don't use this either. Neither of us use this particular methodology. Mary Jo uses the timer religiously. I convert to fees on the fly. As I take an email and tag it to PracticeMaster, or as I make a note, I convert that to fees on the fly. So different people have different ways of doing things. But I think that this is an important way to consider, this ability to take all the things that you've done and convert them to fees all at once. Questions, Leanne?
Sorry, Paul, no questions.
Okay. Well, again, everybody's either asleep or I've done a good job of explaining this. Mary Jo's making motions with her hands to indicate that she thinks everybody's asleep because I'm more boring than she is. Next month, we have, for our PracticeMaster virtual user group meeting, we have 2 subjects, mailing lists and using PracticeMaster for marketing. How to use the contact file to identify who gets certain bits of information, who gets the newsletter, who gets the holiday card, who gets the invited to the open house, and then how to create mailing lists from those lists of information that you either use to create labels in your own Word program, or that you send out to a mailing house to create labels or to create envelopes that address those holiday cards. And I'm going to take that topic, and Mary Jo is going to talk about adding a new area of practice. PracticeMaster has the ability to subdivide your matters by area of practice so that you can store different things for different types of cases. For instance, in a family law case, you want to know about the spouse and the kids and the marital assets, whereas in a litigation or an auto accident, you want to know about the accident report and the police officer and the opposing attorney, and things that are different from one area of practice to another, how to set that up. Now, just in case you're curious, our tabs 3 virtual user group next month will have the topics of statement comments in draft and WIP, draft statements and WIP. In other words, you can put comments into your fees and costs and payments that indicate things that you want to communicate internally and that you want to show up on your draft bills and you want to show up on your WIP reports, but you do not want to show up on a final bill. Rather, nifty little feature that allows you to communicate these things, to put these notes in to your fee entries so that they will show up on the drafts, but they will not show up on the final bill. And we're also going to talk about adding a cost to a posted or unposted invoice in accounts payable. Those of you that are using our accounts payable system to write checks know that when you're writing a check to, let's say, the clerk of courts or to an expert witness, you can, during the time that you're processing that invoice or entering it, you can say, well, this is to get billed to Michael Larson. But if you forget, you can also go back in after the fact and bill for that particular invoice or edit one that's already there through accounts payable. We're going to show you how to do that. Also, while I've got your attention, I'm going to take you out here and show you that you can always see what the upcoming topics are for our virtual user group meetings by going to our website, attorneycomputersystems.com, and I emphasize the plural there. And over on the left here, we have a link to our virtual user group meetings that we call the water cooler sometimes, and there are 3 of them, tabs, PracticeMaster, and World Docs. And if you click on one of these, it will show you what the upcoming topic is, what the date and time is, give you a link to register, and also give you a complete archive of all the other recorded virtual user group meetings we have for that particular topic. We have tabs 3, we have PracticeMaster, and we have World Docs. So without any further ado, everyone have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.